Good evening. Welcome to the the Budget Committee meeting, our first one of the series here for May 16, 2024. And I'll turn it over to Councilor Sassy, since he is the current chair of our Budget Committee. Mr. Sassy, the floor is yours.
Unmute.
Okay.
Oh, he's there. Scott, you need to unmute.
May not be.
You have no sound. I'll call him real quick. Okay. He has no sound.
He's got no sound. He's got no sound.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
There we go.
Okay. But I can't hear anything in reverse.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, I'll have to leave you on the phone. Is that better?
Yep.
Yep,
Can you hear me?
yep.
Scott, can you hear us?
Hello?
Jason, can you hear us?
How's that?
I mean, I can hear you.
But I can barely hear you.
Go ahead and get started. I'll figure it out.
Scott, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can barely hear anybody.
So your part is short.
Oh, you're on the Zoom as well. Can you hear me, Scott?
Okay. And Scott, people. Oh,
That's
Gordon.
back to barely working.
Yep,
Counselor Sassy,
yeah,
Jamie's gonna come to your place and.
okay, okay. Yeah, I see everything, but I have no sound. Okay.
Help us on the way soon.
Okay, thanks, bye.
Okay.
Built AD. So I'm gonna have no time.
It's on our end, it's not there.
Yeah,
It's, ever since the power, I'm not sure when the power.
that mic is not really picking up much. I think the only one picking up with is that mic in the room.
I don't fix it last time.
They came out, looked at it and said, oh yeah, that's why it's not working, and that's all I heard. You can hear it barely, I can barely hear you back there.
Can we move? Jason Canby.
Yeah. That's, I've got his name, we can do that, but that will take about 20 minutes.
What's that?
She seems to,
It happens more than I care for that.
Hey, sorry, Bob. How does you reset the speaker and all that stuff and find out? What do we do?
Mike.
The mic.
Hey, Scott, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
Jason, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, so it's on our end.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna tell Jamie,
yeah, tell him.
I'll call her back.
It's on the Crestron panel? What do we do? Tech page, Crestron panel, top right.
That thing's not working. Hey, it's on our end.
No, I'll go.
It's on our end, yeah. So you can come back. I'm talking to Jason Padden I'm actually sitting at his spot, talking to him. It's kind of weird, isn't it, Jason? He's smiling. Can you hear me?
I can't tell. I can't see anything.
Okay. Oh. Okay. Thanks, Jimmy.
Well, I mean, I can see the budget message thing, but that's it.
That's all we need.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay. So see you might mute? Yeah. Yeah, it's on now. It's on, it's on. It's okay. May 5th.
Also online?
Counselor Jason Patton?
Go ahead, David.
Oh, here?
Your name?
Your
Oh,
name.
I'm sorry, David Tate. I thought we were calling.
Yeah.
Dara Paulson.
Jim Davis.
Lee Wiggin.
Kim Wigan.
Dan Stearns.
Bert DeGraw. Jack Pendleton.
Mayor Hodson.
Council President Tracy Hensley?
Elizabeth Chapin, Budget Committee member.
Eileen Stein, City Administrator.
Scott Schlag, Finance Director.
Katie Joyner, Financial Analyst.
And then department head wise here, we've got Chief Tro, Eric Leitner, Don Hardy, Marissa, and
Ely.
thank you, Melissa Ely, Kevin Aguilar, thank you. Todd Wood is somewhere, Jerry Nelzine, and Maya Burnham and Teresa. So,
We also have Monica Stone, Tyler Nizer,
Monica Stone and Jamie Stickle, Spencer Pollock,
and Teresa,
Tyler Nizer,
and Jessica, and Jose.
we had a whole gang here.
Get the whole gang.
Roll call is complete there, Scott.
Thank you. Now we'll go to, I need approval of minutes from the May 18th, May 25th, and June 1st, 2023 Budget Committee meeting.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes from the May 18th, 2023 Budget Committee meeting, May 25th, 2023 Budget Committee meeting, and the June 1st, 2023 Budget Committee meeting.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Oh, you need a second.
Aye.
We need a second, actually.
Second?
Thank you, Counselor Patton.
Now all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Now on to new business. The elect Budget Committee Chair.
Mr.
Do I have
Chair,
any nominations?
Mr. Chair, I nominate Kim Wigan, citizen member.
And Kim's okay with that?
Yes. Yes.
Do I need a second on that or just?
She
vote?
seconded herself.
Oh, okay.
Any
So all
other-
those in-
Any other nominations?
Any other nominations? Hearing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Congratulations, Kim.
Thank you.
Now the elect Budget Committee Vice Chair. Any nominations?
Am I allowed to nominate myself?
I was going to nominate, oh, yeah, okay.
I'd like to nominate myself as vice chair.
I second that.
Second?
I second it.
Seconded by Elizabeth Chapin.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, great. Congratulations. Now on to the received budget message.
And this is where Kim can take over.
Kim, you have the keys to the car. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Before we get totally started, I do want to acknowledge something. Mr. and Mrs. Wigan are here as Budget Committee members, and they are here spending time with our group on their 10th anniversary of their wedding. So let's congratulate them and thank them for their time. Now let's get to the business. Okay. Received budget message, that would be Eileen.
So before we get going on the budget message, Budget Committee members, we have one legal item of business to take care of, and that is if anybody has a personal or a business interest with the city of Canby, you need to declare that now.
I declare that as Counselor Sassy because of a family member working for the city of Canby.
Thank you. Anyone else?
In the business again.
That doesn't count.
No, it has to be directly related to the city.
Okay, let the record reflect that Counselor Sassy has potential personal conflict of interest, and no one else does. So, thank you. Okay. Let's see. Here we go. No, I didn't want that. There we go. Again, welcome to the Budget Committee members. First thing that I wanted to do in just mentioning, introducing the budget is just talking about what drives the budget, the types of things that we take into account when we put a budget together. So the first thing that we look at is generally what's the climate of the nation, what is the climate of the state, what is the regional and local climate. So what's happening with inflation, what's happening with the cost of goods and services. So that's one thing that drives the budget and informs our estimating on revenues and taxes and everything else that we do. Demographics also drive the budget. So how many people are we expecting? What's our population going to be? How many particular constituents do we have in our that we're trying to serve? The other thing that drives the budget is the amount of capital projects that we're trying to achieve. And so just depending on the resources that we have dictates how fast or slow we can make progress on capital projects. Grant opportunities. Do we have an opportunity to apply for a grant? There are several sources of grant financing that you'll see in the budget. The other thing that drives the budget is goals, revenue assumptions, what assumptions are we making around revenues, and then the final thing, because so much of our budget is our labor costs, those assumptions that we make in the budget also tend to dictate it. Here we go. So the council goals for 24-26, the council met in a goal-setting session mid-February, I want to say, and developed goals for the year. So they are, as I mentioned, they drive this budget as well. So the goals that the council set this year, the broad goals did not change. The objectives changed slightly, and so those can be found on page 14 of your budget if you haven't noticed those already. It has the goals and the objectives in them, but the goals are to promote financial stability, to align resources to address future community growth, to plan a transportation system that eases the impacts of growth, to develop a robust parks and recreation program aligned with the park master plan, and to enhance engagement and communications that represents broad perspectives in the community. The revenue assumptions that are in the budget, these are the major, not all of the budget or the revenues in the budget, but just the major revenues. And so property taxes, as you can imagine, are the single largest revenue source of the city. Utility charges. Intergovernmental comprises of state shared revenues and other forms of revenue that we receive from other governmental agencies. Infrastructure charges, or SDCs, charges for service, and then fund balance drives a big amount of revenue that we have available for reserves and that amount that we carry over from year to year. The expenses by category include personnel, as I mentioned before, materials and services, capital outlay, debt service, special payments, transfers out, operating contingency, and reserve for future expenditure or fund balance. So those are the major categories that you will see in each of the funds. The funds might not have each of these categories, but you will see them spread across the various funds. And you can see more of that, the citywide expenses by category on page 39 of the budget. That page also reflects that the calculation of the ending fund balance percentage of operating revenue is 23%. So the council had a discussion about that and wanted to keep that number, to lower it a little bit and have it fall between that 20 to 25%. So we were able to achieve that as well. In terms of the labor assumptions, the FTE allocations changed slightly. They can be found on page 103 of the budget. But this year, we are presenting a budget with one less FTE in it than last year. So last year, we had 110.3 FTE. This budget has 109.3 FTE in it. Wages and benefits constitute 17.2726 million of the budget. And then the other benefit assumptions that are in the budget are that COLAs will increase. COLAs will be 3.6%. Health insurance will rise 10%. And PERS costs will rise between 5 and 8% depending on what category of retirement employees are in. Is there any questions at all on that? Yes.
What was the initial increase for healthcare insurance costs? Was it from the insurance company, was it 10% right out of the gate, or did we have to negotiate down? Because in years past, it's been anywhere from 17 to 20% increase.
Right. This year, what's in the budget is 10%. I'm thinking it's going to come in at like 9.4 or 9.6 in actuality.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? What I was hoping to do was to be able to discuss the personnel assumptions kind of all in one fell swoop rather than go through them fund by fund. So if you do have any questions on anything in personnel, now's the time to ask it. I mean, you can ask it later on,
I was
but
to say, it's not now or never.
yeah, no, it's not, no. But the department directors are planning to spend less time on personnel, if any. So if you do have questions related to personnel, now's a good time to ask them. Yes.
The city budget as a total. On page 23. What's that? 44.544.
44,000,005, plus the reserve that's being held back. So you have a total of $94,000 in cash, is that correct?
That's correct.
So from the various property taxes and revenues that you're going to collect this year, it's going to be roughly 44.5 million, is that right? So really what you have here is almost 2 years worth of cash. Would that be fair? 45 million coming in this year, and we already got 50 million in the hopper.
No.
Are you referring to the beginning fund balance?
Yes, page 23.
Which is our proposed carryover from this fiscal year of.
So that's money we didn't spend last year.
Pretty much.
Okay. But you're going to collect another 44 million this year.
you're including transfers in and other sources of that 11 million also in that figure. Usually you don't consider transfers in because that's what one fund will pay another fund to do the work, such as HR. So if you really think about it, it's only about 30 million that we're collecting in revenues. So transfers in and other sources aren't necessarily something that would be calculated with city gathered revenue.
So the transfers in and out are basically then from in and out of these other sources over here.
The transfers in?
Yeah, in and out.
Yeah, that would basically be like the general fund collecting funds from the other
So the
library.
actual resources coming in this year would be 44.5 less 11,000,005 because that 11,000,005 is included in the upper figures? Yes.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, my first time,
No.
stupid question.
No. Great question.
I don't know if this is the appropriate time to ask the question, or if I need to wait for the fund when we talk about it, but it is kind of an FTE question. I'm having trouble deciphering here where the code enforcement employee is. In past budgets, that position had been split between planning and police because of the dual role. And now that we have a separate person, I can't identify whether or not that is fully funded from planning now, or if it's a PD function. I want to know where that employee sits in the budget.
Yeah. It's primarily in police, so I'll have George answer that question when we get to that.
When we get to that fund, okay, because I will have questions, because right now, it doesn't make sense to me, but we'll talk about it when we get to police then. Thank you.
Counselor Stearns, did you have a question?
We're supposed to talk about employees right now.
Oof, feedback.
Powerful voice.
I think you're under a speaker.
Am I? Okay. We're supposed to talk about, but I would like to know, mostly for each department, whether, staffing could be better or worse, because, and that's a general question I'm probably going to ask and bore you with every single fund, but I don't know if we want to address that issue now or just with individual funds, because that's kind of, some services are basically, if you want more police, you need to have more people. If you want less police, people. And library is the same thing, where the primary driver in cost is going to be personnel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would prefer to handle that when we get to each of the departments.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, so what we're planning to do tonight is to review the general fund at least, and then review the rest of the funds next week. So we have a lot of funds to review next week. It looks like there's a lot, but some of those funds are pretty straightforward, as you recall. So we will handle those. Also, we're on notice to conduct or convene the Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee next week. So that will be next week. And then if we need it, there would be a third budget committee meeting on May 30th. And the purpose would be to discuss final deliberations on the budget, and then make a budget recommendation to the city council. So that's where we're headed. So, So what we need to do right now is to see if there's anybody from the public that's here. Not seeing anybody from the public, but to be able to open a public hearing, take public comment on the budget, and then close public hearing, and then we can proceed with the budget review.
Okay, seeing none. Kim? There's no public comment, so do you want to move to the next part of the agenda?
Yes.
Well done. You're in charge.
Well, didn't we just receive the budget message? We don't have public comment on the agenda. That's a little confusing, too. So we were going to review the proposed budget, so that would be under. Are you going to call up each
Yes,
department
I
head
am.
individually?
But I just realized that public comment was item number 5 on the agenda.
It's on at the end, yeah.
At the end, yeah.
Okay. So that's like, okay.
Yeah. In the event anybody wants to make a comment on the agenda, on the budget afterwards, they can do so if we receive any public.
All right.
Okay.
So we'll review them.
So the first program we're going to take is court. So Maya.
This is Counselor Patton, if I may, just a moment. Can you hear me in there?
Yes, sir.
So, I think it might be good if, and I'm sorry, new chair's name, what is your name again, ma'am? I'm sorry.
It's Kim Wigan?
Kim?
Yes.
Okay. It might be good, so when Counselor Sassy originally took over as the member of the community as chair, I took some time with him to, as the previous chair, took some time with him to kind of give him a crash course in like, we normally have a parking lot for some various questions and stuff, and so rather than throw you to the wolves, if it might make sense to take just a very brief recess so that someone could maybe, if you are interested, give you kind of a quick rundown of sort of how things have been done, so you can maybe not feel quite so thrown to the wolves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, give me like 90 seconds, I got her. Your public comment.
We're back.
All right.
Thank you. Municipal court begins on page 57.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and Budget Committee. I'm Maya Benham, Administrative Director and City Recorder. This is my first budget to be included, so I wear a couple different hats, and I'm here to give a brief update about municipal court, and I invite you, council, to include anything extra that I may forget after speaking. I'd like to give just a little brief background. Prior to COVID, the municipal court operated with 2 full-time and 1 part-time staff. Court operated with prosecuting criminal matters at the local level. And in July 2022, the operations of municipal court were changed and the criminal matters were handed over to the county. Fast forward to April 3rd, most recently, there was a work session with City Council where it was discussed whether to bring the criminal misdemeanors back here at the local level. And there was consensus to move forward in that direction. So you'll see, you'll see that this is reflected in the budget as well as an additional FTE. So over the last year, the court saw a substantial increase of close to about 30% in the amount of traffic citations and processed by court staff. And this additional FTE would benefit the increased workload in municipal court while bringing back the additional criminal cases, while also returning the department to full staff. So it would also support the additional customer service coverage needed when staff needs to be out of the office. And I also have Jessica Roberts here, court supervisor, to help answer any specific questions, as well as Scott Schlegg, finance director. Counselor Stearns?
As far as the court, I don't know if you have this number or not, but how long does it usually take to resolve a ticket or a misdemeanor? I'm trying to ask what the backlog is, or if there's a backlog. That'll help.
As far as a backlog for traffic violations, there's,
Well, general court. Yeah.
I mean, not much of a backlog. No, we're pretty sufficient, yeah.
Okay.
Pretty quickly.
Any other questions?
Seems pretty straightforward, actually, to me.
Good.
Candy.
Thank you.
Gotta get our
It might take a little bit longer than that.
I'll run backwards. Page 51.
Kevin? While Kevin's coming down, I'll handle administration. So the administration budget pretty much reflects the fact that the council also decided to contract out its city attorney services. So instead of there being budget in the personnel section of the budget, you will see under a new line item called attorney services, $152,000. I don't know if this is going to be sufficient, but based on how we're billing this year, hopefully it will be. So we will be issuing a request for proposals for that service, and we'll see what it comes in at.
Are we hiring a firm, putting a firm on retainer, or do we go out for different attorneys for different types of business, or what?
Good question. We're going to go hire a firm who will be the city attorney. And then he or she, we will have a primary attorney, but they might, involve other associates depending on what the need is. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Will that be a local attorney firm?
Don't know.
No.
Yeah. Don't know. We'll issue the RFP, the request for proposals, and we'll see what kinds of proposals we get back. So they're very good. There are a number of very good attorney firms in Oregon, as well as the attorney firm that we're using currently, Barry Elsner and Hammond, who I suspect will receive a proposal from.
And but they're not local.
They are in Portland. Yeah. The other cost that I just wanted to point out, under professional and technical services, I increased that budget a little bit because we're anticipating doing a community survey this year to just be able to gauge how well we're serving the community and its meeting its needs. So there's extra money in that line item for that study or for that survey. That's all I really wanted to point out in administration. Is there any questions?
Also, Patton has a question.
Yes, I have my hand raised.
Oh,
It's hard to see that, actually.
It's okay. Go ahead, Jason.
Is the amount that you are putting in the budget, and I'm sorry, I didn't go back and look at it, is it the equivalent to what we have budgeted in just straight salary for a city attorney before, or is this based on how costs are tracking currently?
I believe what we did was we just took out the amount in the personnel budget that had been included for city attorney. And then the reason that, where are we charging? Oh, this doesn't have. We are tracking the existing costs for the interim city attorney out of that professional and technical services line.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Kevin?
Kevin Aguilar, HR Director. And to fill you in a little bit of the HR duties, you also see risk management tied in here. And that is also part of Maya's portfolio with the risk management, which is city liability, city property, things like that. And then we also have our workers' comp. So with the overall HR program, responsible for providing personnel support for all city leaders, city employees, and that includes full range and comprehensive HR services and programs, recruitment, training and development, performance management, benefits, compensation, salary classifications, labor and employee relations. So it's full portfolio. There's myself and another employee on my team. We split some of our time between the administration and within the HR portfolio, and really trying to make a big push for employee development, employee engagement. So that has been a little bit of what we've done. Some of the highlights for the past year, I joined the city end of July, so majority of that fiscal year. Supported 21 recruitments. That includes full cycle, so from posting to onboarding, going through benefits orientations. Within that, it included 4 director roles and the city administrator as well. We successfully administer state and federal leave laws. If any of you have been tracking legislative sessions, those are changing every year, and we want to stay on top of that. So those are big piece of ours, and how do we offer that to our employees. We also completed an employee engagement survey and have implemented a lot of those recommendations. We also successfully manage our workers' comp claims. We actually receive reimbursements from SAFE, our insurance company, for having an effective return to work program and getting some of those wages back. We've also completed our, every 3 years you have to do a classification, compensation, and pay equity analysis. And we had our final presentation here this week. So that is a big project that has been completed. It'll be back on our books in 3 years. We've also redesigned our performance evaluation process So that was really focused on improving the user experience for our directors, managers, completing employee evaluations, and being a useful process for them. Also increasing our employee recognition efforts and initiatives. Last highlight I want to mention here is, depending on how you want to receive your data, we have a 13% turnover rate or 87% retention rate. For next year, our 24-25 goals is continue to fill those vacancies effectively that result from employee separations or retirements, and then updating our city personnel policies and continue to improve communication at all levels of the organization. On page 54, a couple of the accounts that I want to just highlight is professional services is decreasing because of that pay equity study being closed. So this year or last year, that was budgeted higher because of that pay equity study that's coming off the books. One of the accounts that's coming in higher is labor negotiations. Both of our contracts with AFSCME and CPA will be opening up for bargaining within the next fiscal year. That's pretty much what I want to bring to your attention. And then employee recognition is being added into the HR budget. It was previously under administration, but it makes more sense to have that with our new initiatives and strategies to have that housed in HR. Any questions? Yes.
You have a hand up here. Oh, she couldn't see it. Oh, yes.
Thank you. 13% turnover as an industry standard, we're good, you're concerned?
That is actually good. So for government agencies and public sector agencies, anything below 20%, it's a good mark. It's a good mark.
Thank you.
I'm just curious, I know that there's $500,000 in insurance premiums. What kind of claims do that service, and I'm just curious, that's the big number. It's the biggest number on there, so.
It is, so that's more than almost half the budget there, that account. So the liability insurance, that's all of our protection, right? That includes all of our casualty property. So that's all of our CIS insurance. That's what those liabilities are there, anything with SAFE and CIS.
Okay. Is there a lot of claims?
There's not, it's just insurance has gotten more expensive every year and we can't operate without it.
Oh, yes.
I noticed that the internal charge for tech services keeps climbing quite a bit. What is that? Why is that?
So there's going to be internal charges in 3 different areas, but primarily what you'll see there for tech services is that's a shared cost amongst all the funds in order to basically take care of the dying equipment that the city has that need to be replaced. Todd, our doer of all directors, I guess, Swiss Army director, he can probably talk about that a little bit more, but the reason of the increase is because we have so many servers that need to be replaced, and we can't be without servers, especially because of the crisis with, we don't want our software getting hacked or anything to that effect, Trojan horses. So all of those things that come along with it. So we got to replace those. It's a necessity in order to keep the city running. So we increased the budget across the board for tech services.
Thank you.
And that also goes to pay for the contracts.
And I just wanted to say, you will see that dynamic exist in all the budgets, all the funds that are presented. So our tech services budget is higher than it has been because of the replacement of those servers. So you will see that trend throughout the budget.
Thank you.
Yes.
If I may, I don't know if it was explained before, but for some of the newer folks that are joining the budget committee, it might be good to just talk about what chunks of that, like what things are actually captured in that professional services line item that is spread out over the budget. If it might be something good to just run down. I'm not sure if that was done initially.
Councilor Patton, are you talking about the professional services or the technical services?
Well, no, sorry, professional services, is that, if memory serves me correctly, that's like IT, city administrator, you know, there's several things that are kind of rolled up into that, and I could be remembering it correctly, that are rolled up into that
It's split up.
item that is then spread out over all of the departments, or am I remembering that incorrectly?
We have 3 internal service charge programs: facilities, technical services, and fleet. And so city administration as an overhead item is not spread amongst the departments, each of them.
Okay.
And so the professional services line item actually ends up being the professional services that are used by that particular fund. So I'm just trying to think of, in administration, for example, we charge our records management contract to our professional services line item. So that's an example of a service that's charged there.
So like IT, this particular one you just mentioned, those sort of things.
No.
Our records management fee, our license for records management system is charged there, but not our IT support. That is charged to internal charge technical services line.
Okay.
So in the case of finance, which is the fund we're talking about, we're talking $15,000 down from $33,000.
We're in HR.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got ahead. I was in finance. Well, let's do that then. We're down 75 from 115. What is the HR professional services?
Yeah, so last year, about 85,000 to 90,000 of that was for that pay equity that spread out. They were retained in 2022, and then we finally closed that work out. So that's that professional services, contracting somebody to do that work.
So when we hire a consultant.
Correct, employee engagement survey, that sort of scenario.
Okay. Gotcha.
Go ahead.
Hey there, my name's Darryl Paulson with the Budget Committee member. Couple of questions, and they kind of coincide. Employee recognition for 2024, is that for the entire city?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're not budgeting any money for employee recognition next year?
No, so that one is actually moving over from the admin. So under the admin account, you'll see the amounts for 22, 23, 24. And then what I'm proposing for 25, they're moving it into the HR account.
Okay.
So yeah, current fiscal year was 5,525, and now proposing 9,000 for next fiscal year.
Where is that 5,500?
Under page 52, it'll be the last account there, employee recognition, all at the bottom.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then non-insurance claims, what are those?
Those are my favorite.
Yeah.
So those are anything that we don't want to go through the insurance company. So if it's a smaller claim that we can just take care of.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we budget that every year, but the last 2 years, or last year and the year before, we didn't use it.
Correct. Yeah, so it's one of those just safety nets, safety accounts. Yeah.
Okay. That's it.
Yeah.
Mayor Haas?
Thank you. And Scott, maybe you can explain the internal transfer piece for some of the budget committee members, why we do it the way we do it and so forth.
Sure. So as Eileen mentioned, that there's three internal charges. The first one is fleet, and fleet basically goes across the desk of Jerry. But basically, what that is that's the individuals over there are taking care of the entire fleet of the city. So whatever is charged to that is basically charged to that particular fund. So if it's a vehicle, that's what's basically being worked on. Jerry has majority of it. Actually, no. I think police has the majority of our fleet, so, who else has the majority of it? Oh, transit, I forgot Todd. We got a bus system.
The buses are a little.
And Todd manages fleet. I'm sorry, Todd. You so the Swiss Army director manages fleet also. So basically, it's always charged to Todd. I was trying to give him away your job. So that's basically how fleet operates as an internal charge. It's all based on mechanics of taking care of our fleet. The next one, facilities, that's basically it's calculated based off of square footage of the buildings. So it's just, police has certain square footage, so the cost is basically divided across what the square footage is. That one's kind of easy also. Tech services, that one is more of a three-pronged calculation. It takes into account the number of phones, the number of computers, and I believe the number of service calls that are basically handled by tech. So that's basically the three-pronged approach that I take to basically calculate how we're going to divvy up the calculation charges for IT. And obviously, it's like we talked about, a little higher because of replacing servers, and they're apparently not cheap. So does that help answer how the internal charges are divided amongst the funds? Thank you. Are there any questions? I'm here on.
Thank you. That was what I was trying to get at. I was not saying it properly.
Glad to help you, Jason.
Any other questions?
Next is finance.
Oh, me again. Me again. Okay. So a finance budget actually starts on page 55 and follows on to page 56. So the finance department basically manages all the city's finances. And we provide all the information to basically council, city administrators, and all department directors. We actually are made up of multiple individuals that have different job duties. So we have my finance analyst that is basically my right hand. We also take care of the general ledger. We do all payroll, we do cash management, we do the fixed assets, we do AP, accounts payable, AR, accounts receivable. We are primarily the procurement stop, and we try to do all of payroll tax, transit tax, and we do transit tax collections and the utility billings. So as you can see, we do a lot of things that basically bring the money in and pay the bills, and we keep a real tight eye on daily ins and outs to make sure that we stay within the budget law, so that way we don't have to answer any questions at the end to say why we went over budget. That's primarily what we do. We are the keeper of the funds. We try not to say no, we try to say yes, but that doesn't always happen. As you can see, what we're trying to do in the future is we're trying to get back to doing our ACFR. We can't say the other word because apparently that is a derogatory name now. The AICPA decided to change it. So if you guys remember the comprehensive annual financial report, you can't say that acronym anymore. It's now called an ACFR. So that's why we have that change in our documentation. Just a little fun note. Some of the things that we highlighted this year was me. Hello. I came from Grove, Mueller, and Swank. That was the previous audit firm. And we also filled a key vacancy to allow for more cross-training with our front desk and with our payroll and utility billing. And she's doing awesome. And then I implemented starting weekly meetings as a team, so that way we can all understand what everybody is doing, and that way we can have goals and set up, and so that way we can have discussions about what's going on. And then we have rocks, things that we want to move forward that aren't going to be solved in a day or two. And then we also continue to strive to have our internal control process, because that's one of the biggest things that I see in every municipality is making sure we have segregation of duties and that we're following our internal control process. So that way we can tell our auditors we are doing awesome. Some of the goals that we have set out are basically we want to try to make our transit payroll tax more of an online system to make it easier for our customers to pay. We're trying to translate all of our forms to make them more accessible for our Spanish-speaking customers. I would love to refine our procurement process. That's going to be one of those rocks that I'm hoping to take over. And we are really striving to make sure that our audit is done by 12/31 of 2024 this year, and present that without an extension. And then we are going to resume the GFOA award process for our budget. So those are kind of the highlights that we have there. And on page 56 is our presented budget. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you guys have about the budget numbers that are presented. Or FTE.
Scott, sorry,
Yes, Mayor Hudson.
thanks. In terms of staffing, we're good, plus or minus, like, do we need to add headcount either now or coming up in coming years?
That's such a loaded question.
I know ideally every department wants, at least 3 more people. Canby Police wants 5, but, I get it.
No, we love you, but no.
The city is growing. There's no doubt that, from what I've seen so far in my 5 months being a part of the team. The thing I see that I think the city needs really is a grant person in order to go get more revenue. That's going to be a rock, I think, that would be carried forward. I also see a full-time procurement person because procurements are crazy. It's an animal. That being said, my current staff load right now is fully staffed with what we need to do. My allocations amongst my staff are divided between other departments. So even though I might have 6 staff, it doesn't reflect 6 because they don't spend 100% of their time in finance. They spend a lot of their time doing other areas with streets, with collections, with just other funds. And so that being said, I would love to have a couple people because I can see us going after grant money. But that means it requires somebody that understands how to apply for grants, how to respond to federal government's inquiries, because there comes a whole lot of other requirements when we start taking money from the feds. And then again, procurement it's an animal. So that whole thing, I would love to be able to have those as, a future, but I hope that answers your question.
It does, thank you.
And Scott, I have a question. What is the criteria for the 2 different awards that are listed?
So the GFOA, which is they're kind of the oversight board for these criteria. For the ACFR award, we haven't provided an ACFR because of the change in staffing over the past few years. But it's generally about a 130-page document that basically has a whole lot of information that most people don't care about. It has statistical data. We got to get statistical data, demographic data. We got to do a whole lot of analysis. We got to get a whole lot of information from the county. And you put that all together in one giant document along with our financial statements. So our financial statements have to be going from a budget basis, what you see here, over to full GAAP. And that's all the front page stuff. And I think you're the accountant, so I can speak accountantese to you, right? So all of that goes into play with the GFOA, and then we turn it in, and then we get graded. And so they'll let us know that we think you need more disclosures because of your estimates or whatever. And it's very subjective. At my time as an auditor, I would be the one that really responded to the GFOA on behalf of the client I was serving. And it could be either a nitpicky, which was very common, or there was an actual need to have some more disclosure or a statement. The financial statements do take quite a bit of time. And so I don't foresee us getting that as my first year coming in and trying to get all of the information together out of our system, because I'm still learning too. But I do foresee us going after the GFOA award for excellence in government financing for the budget. One, because it's done, almost. And I do have a good foundation that I found, and so it's actually a little easier than going after the actual award for our ACFR. So I have a feeling that's what and it's about 7 pages, because I plan on getting my team inundated with all this because I have succession planning. I plan to retire hopefully in 10 to 15 years. Yes, I'm old, but I look young thanks to my mom. So, does that help answer?
Yes, thank you.
There's a lot of pages. I would love to send it to you, and you might be able to help.
Sure.
Taking volunteer budget committee member to a new level.
Right. I'm a rare breed. I'm an accountant with a sense of humor. Sorry, Dan.
Never heard of that.
Kim.
Yes.
Thank you. But the only thing you didn't say is who presents that award?
Who presents the award?
You're putting this to somebody to get the award. Who does it go to? State?
The GFOA.
Oh, the GFOA.
The GFOA, yeah. We submit it to them, and after they do their criteria, if we've done a good enough job, they will send us like a little plaque or a certificate, and then we'll actually hopefully have it in next year's as an actual page that says, here what we got, and then this basically lets you know that the finance team is hard at work.
Okay, thank you.
So for those that don't know, GFOA stands for Government Finance Officers Association. Yeah.
We have a lot of acronyms.
Yes.
Oh, I have a follow-up question from Mayor Hodson's question. You're saying that maybe sometime you might want an extra person or two to cover grants and for procurement. So, and I put you on the spot to get you an imprecise answer, what does a grant person generally bring in as a ratio of their actual cost? So, I understand you pay somebody, I don't know, $125,000 a year. What are they going to bring in as extra money?
That's a really good question. If I could pay somebody $125,000, I would anticipate them paying for themselves, within that year. But they have to be able to also know where to go find the money. And that's basically going to all of the number of federal areas that basically are able to be drawn from. We have to meet criteria.
Yeah, no,
Right.
I understand that I guess what I'm trying to say is, are we leaving money on the table that we could have if we didn't, because we don't have this person, that we could have if we did have this person?
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
stiffing your collection people. If you don't have enough collection people, you actually end up reducing your money that way, so.
Yeah. Going out for somebody that does grants, you'd have to vet them to see what they've been doing, how they've been doing it. Are they interested in even, jumping ship from one place to another? I couldn't tell you what they might be able to bring in. I would definitely love to give it a shot, because I bet you they'd probably be surprised. We could also go around and look to see what other cities have possibly done.
Yes.
Silly question, but I'm looking at the revenue here at 377,000. And you have total requirements of $1,039,000.
I'm needing, what was that?
I'm sorry. I'm looking at, I guess it's the budget. It says resources, 377,000.
You're on planning.
Resources?
On planning, is that what I'm looking at?
What page are you on?
We're still on
We're still on,
finance.
it's still on finance.
Page 56.
Huh?
56.
Oh, 56. Well, I was excited to get ahead.
No problem.
Any other questions? Okay.
Speaking of planning, that is our next program, so I'll call Don Hardy down to the desk.
Well, just a second.
Oh, sorry.
It's hard to see that little hand up there.
Yes.
If I may, we've talked about this grant writer, we've thrown around this idea of grant writer a few budget cycles now. I'm wondering if it might be time to kind of put this in the parking lot for towards the end of the budget cycle, and maybe have this and discuss maybe making a recommendation as a body to the city council to direct for there to be a study done as to what bringing a grant writer in could look like for the city in the future. See, if it would be economically feasible and sort of vet some of that stuff out.
Yeah, I second that.
All right, grant writer on the parking lot.
We got it.
Grant writer in the parking lot.
Got it.
Good evening, I'm Don Hardy, I'm the planning director. I just wanted to give a brief overview of what we do as our service areas first, and then I'll dive into detail. Trying to keep it very high level. I could probably spend a lot of time tonight, and there's many people behind me that want to be up here as well. So the two categories of planning is development services, which is our current planning, and then we have long-range planning, which is our comprehensive planning work that we're doing as well. Development services are for developments. Those are larger projects like subdivisions, larger commercial developments, and industrial developments. Those generally go through the Planning Commission. We meet twice a month with a PC. Most large projects go through that review process. We also do reviews for lesser projects as well. There's kind of a gamut of different things we do. We're also involved in the building permit process as well. Even though Clackamas County actually does the building plans examination, we have a part in that as well based on our site plan review process, and we look at temporary and final occupancy permits alongside public works for those as well. We're on a fairly big ramp up. We're a year and a half into a comprehensive plan update, and that's involved many aspects of long-range planning, which is really looking at the lens for the city in the next 20 years, looking at the 6,000 people that are forecasted for the next 20 years, looking at about 6,800 jobs for the next 20 years, and where will those go, and including an urban growth boundary expansion for that. There's many sub-elements of the comprehensive plan, including the housing needs analysis, housing production strategy, housing efficiency measures. All those are packaged together. They're all moving forward all at the same time. So we're rather busy between the current planning and the long-range planning. Staffing level is good at this point, but we do have consulting services, and that's in our budget here in professional services. I can go through that in detail if you'd like me to. And so that's continuation of services that have been contracted for the comprehensive plan and transportation system plan. Just wanted to point out some of the things that were accomplished this year. I won't go into all the detail, but an economic opportunity analysis was approved, and that's showing about 440 acres of need for employment lands to be expanded beyond the current boundary of the city. That's the 6,800 jobs that are associated with that. And so that was adopted. The sequential urban growth boundary process, I didn't realize at the time that Eileen and I went to the county and got that approved how significant that was. Because the timing of these things generally are not super predictable, and I'm glad that we are technically vested to standards that keep changing at the state level for housing. So we're vested to the population for 2020 population, which allows us to continue to plan for the population forecast instead of another population, which means the short answer is we can get through the process quicker. That's a lot of information. Be happy to answer questions for you all. I did want to speak, and we were talking briefly about grants. We were successful in getting another Department of Land Conservation and Development grant at $75,000 in December. We'll be seeking another grant from the Oregon Department of Transportation for TGM, Transportation Grant Management, for about $250,000. We'll be submitting that in July. That's for concept planning and transportation system planning. We've already discussed this with ODOT, and it looks like we have a high probability of getting that as well. The comprehensive plan work is not cheap, since we haven't done updates though for 38 years. Their timing, this is a long-term investment for this community. I think that the value is added in the sense that the employment base will bring jobs and value to the city from a tax base as well as from a system development charge base as well. The city is growing. There's, growth pressures here. Trying to maintain the balance of growth and livability is always a challenge, but that's the goal of the group. I've enjoyed working alongside Jamie Stickle for community outreach, and she's been really helpful in that process as well as we work through this process. If there are questions, I'd be glad to answer those.
Yes, Councilor Hensley.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's here or police, but I did notice that we added one FTE from 23 to 24. Now we're adding another one from 24 into the next budget with increase, obviously, with wages and PERS and insurance. So we have added person, but yet I'm being told it's not the code enforcement person. So I'm just trying to understand where this one is and where is the code enforcement person.
As far as I know, we have 6. We've had 6 staff for over a year, and that's really where that's my direct reports. I have 5 direct reports. So if there's another person in there, I'm not sure where that is.
It goes from 3.3 to 4.3 on this page that I'm looking at. Page 61, personnel services, FTEs.
Extra person.
Yeah, and so I think if you add the 4.3 and the 1 for building, I mean, it'd be 5.3. There's really, essentially there we have 6 staff, so we're not really adding staff as far as I'm aware. I'm not sure how the allocation is going.
Okay, so they're reallocated. But in past budgets, I believe part of it's like a half FTE for planning and a half FTE for police for the code enforcement. I'm just trying to figure out where she is now.
Okay. So the code enforcement officer is 75% police, 25% planning.
25% planning. Okay, and just explain to my brain, because they're enforcing code, which is actually from planning. So to me, it seems like it would be the other way around. So can someone explain the logistics behind that?
The 75-25?
Why is it split? To me, it seems it's split backwards.
George, you might have a better response. Do we want to wait for George when he comes up for the
Okay.
why that is?
Answer it right now.
I just wanted to give you the percentage of the allocation and the reason you're seeing some changes in the FTE in the building and the planning, because we went through an overhaul of where are the personnel actually spending the time. So to appropriately reflect personnel costs.
What is she primarily spending her time doing is what I want to know.
So she does code enforcement, right? So code includes some planning and building, but it also includes parking, and that's actually the majority of her work is in the parking enforcement. So that is more geared toward the police and to the code book, where it's more violations than on the building side.
Okay, and is the camping ordinance in police or planning?
The camping ordinance is in police.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you actually enforcing parking downtown?
If they're
curious. Just
no,
curious.
Downtown, we really don't unless it's complaint driven right now.
Okay, and the camping ordinance, I did notice we have another resident motorhome on Pine again, so.
They're actually not living in it at this time. We don't have any proof of that, but if they are living in it, we have enforced that, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Other questions? I'd be happy to, yes.
Did you want to go? I feel like I'm hogging because I'm right next to the chair. I noticed that the construction excise tax looks like it's about almost halved on the budget between the 24 and the 25. Is it just less construction going on right now, or?
This is the formula for this, to be quite honest with you. I don't really know the complete formula here. This number may be slightly off. It may be more than this. This is probably a conservative estimate of that. And I probably should know the formula, but that's not something that we control here. I think it comes to the county. So the good news is I think construction is going to be on a boom. And that number likely will be going up, and on a boom in the sense that there's a pipeline of projects that are coming through. Several very large warehouses are coming to the city quite soon. And there will be also some other developments that will be happening. So I think that will come up. That might be a circle back item on this, but I don't have a better answer at this point.
And then the other thing I noticed was the almost half on the tech service costs.
That's where I was going to.
Oh, well.
You got it. Was that the comp plan consultant or why was that?
Which line? Oh, tech services,
Tech
yeah.
services.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is, let me explain kind of what that breakdown is if you'd like on the 280,000. Is that the one you'd like information on?
Well, I just like to look for big changes.
Yeah, it was
Those,
590.
I think there was a big push last year, and this is going to ebb and flow. This is a long term. I'll be back next year with other requests on the continuation of the comp plan. This next year is a lesser expensive year. Some of that is a rollover of some of the work that did not get accomplished from the previous year, and the previous year had a lot more consulting services in it than this year, which will still be adequate to cover that. It's just it's a lesser cost this year. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yes, Mayor Hudson.
So big conversation piece, I think, and I don't believe it's reflecting in this year's budget, but probably next year's is when we're looking at the fee structures and trying to recoup costs to cover expenses. Is that factored in this year, or is that more looking at factoring in the next year?
And I'll speak to one thing I forgot to mention, actually. We're part of that question, we're going to be doing a system development update as part of the consulting services for this next fiscal year. So system development charges will be going up this year as part of that. As part of cost recovery, which is, I think, the other question that you're having, that I have not factored that into our budget typically you need a study to do that. So the law basically is you either do the average cost or you do the real cost. To get to real cost, you actually have to have a study. And so we could be looking, I mean, that's something absolutely we could look at this year, is to do a reflective on an average cost again. We did do a fee update about a year and a half ago. That is not cost recovery, but it is getting us closer to what it was, which was far distant from that long before we changed it. We were fortunate at that time to be able to use Sandy's evaluation, which they had just done for their average cost. And so that's something we clearly can do, but it's going to have to be over this next fiscal year. And that's something we can target. And if there was a desire to get to actual cost, we would need to budget for a contractor to do that work, to tell us what that is.
Okay. Thank you, Don. Sure.
So I have a question. The resource, it looks to me that the resources are not up with the requirements, and
That's true, and part of that is, that we're doing this comprehensive plan work, which is a long-term amortized investment. I mean, and there is an element to that. We also had some challenges this year with 11 interest rate increases, which was challenging by itself. So part of this is, I think, we are trying to recover our costs to the extent we can. We are being subsidized by the general fund, totally understand that. I think this next year, given an election year, typically is better. We're already seeing like industries reinvesting again, and then we're hopeful for a much better year. Last July was horrible. It's like driving off a cliff after 11 interest rate jumps. It was really bad. And I think that's, fortunately, we have some things that are pretty consistent. We have about 200 houses a year being built here. That's, in the $3 million SDC category when those come in. But that's been fairly consistent. I think that I'm hopeful for a better year. With some additional cost increases, I think we could get closer to that. It's very difficult, I would just say, just observationally, though, to get to full cost recovery for planning departments, just generally speaking, is my experience. It's not something normally happens. They're usually subsidized in part by the general fund.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add to that, Don has mentioned a lot of, comp plan work and UGV expansion work, and that's all what is considered long-range planning. So that doesn't pay for itself. You have to have, other revenues. Current planning, you can get closer to that paying for itself, but long-range planning, you can't.
I see. Thank you. Any other questions?
Is there anything you want to touch on the building?
Just on the building side of things, speaking of kind of cost recovery, there's another element of this is maybe the revisitation with the county on the split of the revenues for that review process. And that's fairly dated. That was something that existed before I came on board. That's another item that Eileen and I have talked about. They've had some challenges with their staffing levels, and their building official, once their building official left, and that was about a year ago. I don't think they've replaced his position, but we are working with the county on trying to get some discussion around that piece of it as well, which would be the split between our share of that, which is our site plan review process, and their plan review process. I think on the building side of things, we do work well with the county. They have a development direct system, which is a computer system that we are actively engaged in. I think that process is going well on that side of things. But that clearly is another element of what we're doing. And it's not an insignificant amount of work. It's about one person really dedicated to that per year. And that's been pretty consistent because we do take in site plan reviews and hundreds of these. And we do site plan reviews for not just houses, but decks and porches. And I mean, we're reviewing stuff that most people don't understand that gets reviewed. Almost everything requires a permit. So we're involved with that pretty extensively.
Yes, Mayor Hudson.
Thanks, Don. Back to the point about the split with county and whatnot. Have we been picking up that slack?
Well,
because the turnaround time from county has historically not been good. And it seems that it's gotten even more or less good.
More or less good.
And there's fewer complaints now, but there's less development. So I don't know. I'm not trying to defend them, but I think they're trying. I think the county has struggled with, as an organization, with their board. Just to be honest, I think their salaries, et cetera, are like. I think it's hard for them to retain people, and I think they've stabilized. Is our sense from that. We're not hearing what we heard maybe a year ago where people were complaining about how long it took to get through their process. So I think it's gotten better. We are, on that side of things, we are, for pre-application meetings, Richard Carson is the plans examiner. He's showing up to these meetings, which I really appreciate. So they're taking an interest in like the front end load of what we're doing here on a project, which that's very helpful that they're, because they weren't doing that a year, this has been in the last year. They weren't doing that the last years, 2 years before that. So I do think they're paying more attention. I think their customer rate, they do have the smiley face to the red face on their, we don't have that on our forms, but I'm guessing they don't want a bunch of red faces on those forms. So they're trying, I think. Yeah.
What would it take, because in our history, we've had the building department stuff that we share or have county do within the scope of the city, what would that look like to try to redevelop that or bring that back?
I think we'd have to study that. The challenge is having enough land, and it's not infinite as we are studying this with the urban growth boundary expansion. We have to go through and justify that, and that's for 20 years. And so I don't know if that, let's say that section of land, which is roughly about a section all in, that would be employment and residential and parks. How much time would that, what would that take to hire? It wouldn't be just one person. You'd have to have a plans examiner and probably somebody supporting that. So you're probably looking at 2 FTE to add to that. I don't have the formula for that. I don't know how long. The problem with the building site is if you run out of land, you have to lay people off. That's really the bottom line. And I think that's, part of, yeah. And so I think that would have to be looked at and to determine. I can't project that. I don't have enough information, but we did have a building department here before, it stopped in 2012. So like 2011, we were still a building department. And I don't know that much about the building department on our functionality. But it did seem to work for a while, and then everything stopped. And there were a couple recessions that happened, and I'm sure that was the reason.
So right now, the split between, or the working with the county is really our best option.
I think it is. I believe that, it's not an enormous amount of, and part of our fee rate review should look at the building permit side of things too. And we would need some professional help with that. We would obviously get interest from home builders if we went to that point and started raising building permit fees. They would be showing up to the fee ordinance hearing. So we would want to be on our game for that. But I think that does need to be looked at as well as the fee. Our fees are part of the calculation for what the county is putting into the fee structure, and then the split between us and them is based on, the formula is our fee structure and then multiplied out by this valuation of the structure. But I think a revisitation to the building permit fees, we did planning before, we didn't do building, but should be done as well.
Thank you.
Jason. Oh, yes, Councilor Patton.
I don't think he heard you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Councilor
If I may?
Yes.
So I would just say that in watching this over the years, I am totally for not building a new building department. I remember back when we did have a building department, it was somewhat self-sufficient. And then when the housing market crashed in the teens, the city kept those folks on, and it became a huge draw on the general fund. And then finally they got laid off, and those were not pleasant city council meetings. I was either in the audience or I was on the council when that happened, and it was not pleasant. As volatile as the housing market is, just in general, this is one that I am happy to keep with the county and pay the fee. I'm all for looking at the fees to see if, we can get closer to recapturing some of these costs of this one FTE. But I will adamantly advocate for us continuing to leave this with the county and contract this out to them.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Don.
Stay on. Okay, good evening. George Stroh, Chief of Police. I also have some backup here. I have Captain Doug Kitzmiller and Captain Jose Gonzalez. So just in case if I miss anything, they'll chirp in. So we start on page 64 of the book. We really don't have a lot of changes from last year to this coming year. Overall, our budget did increase just because, as you know, everything has increased, just costs have increased. But first, I want to say that I am happy to announce that we are at full staffing for the first time in about 10 years. And I really want to give a lot of credit to Kevin and his HR team, Teresa, for helping us get there. Thank you, Kevin. It is difficult hiring, right? And as we had retirements and we've added positions over the last few years, it's been tough to get people. But we are at full staffing. We have a couple still in training, and a couple of those will be in June for swearing in, so you guys will be able to meet them. So that's great. So that puts us at 29 full-time sworn officers and 6 non-sworn staff, and that includes our behavioral health clinician, our code enforcement, our property techs, and our record clerks, and our admin supervisor. This is for Councilor Stern. So this puts us at about 1.5 officers per 1,000 population, which is a very good measure for us, for our town, for our city. Like the mayor said, we always want more. And my goal is, and I've said this several times and over the last few years, is to have a 3 minimum officer minimum staffing at all times. Right now, we have two officer minimum, and sometimes it's hard to do that. The other thing that I would like to do eventually is 24/7 supervision. We're getting there. We added a supervisor, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, and like to get there sometime. But the 1.5 officers per 1,000 is pretty good measure for our city, so we're pretty happy about that. Couple items of notes. We kind of added an officer this year, but we kind of didn't, and I'll explain that. So the council will remember back in December, we added an additional school resource officer. So that's why you see our FTE increase from last year to this year, but we actually added that position back in December. This is a split 50-50 cost with the school district. We have a school resource officer at the high school, and we've had that position there for over 20 years. And we've been working on getting one at the middle school, and they also service the grade schools. It's been a great partnership so far, and they want to continue that, so we've added that in our budget for this coming year. Let's see, the other thing we're requesting is a purchase of a patrol canine. That's listed in capital for about $21,000. So we've had a canine program here since I started and Jose started over 29 years ago. And we've had one pretty consistently over those years. About 2 years ago, our last canine retired, and due to kind of short staffing issues, we have not replaced that canine. So this next year, we would like to replace it. This would be a patrol canine, and they're a great tool for law enforcement. They're used to track suspect, clear buildings, and various other things. So we are looking to add that in the fall of this year. So that's down there. A couple minor additional cost increases in material and services. In communications, we needed to get air cards for all our vehicles due to our camera system that downloads into the server, and we needed that, and that's about $8,000 more than last year. Our county dispatch fees, which does our dispatching, went up quite a bit, $20,000 from last year to this next year. Training costs have increased a little bit just because classes are more, travel are more, hotels if they have to stay. Our C800 radio fees, which is just our radio system, went up a little bit, $6,000. Firearms went up about $5,000, just mainly ammo costs have gone up. One thing that Jack Pendleton noted was our overtime increased, right? And you've seen that increase. So it's increased $130,000 over last year, but I want to mention $122,000 of that is reimbursed grant overtime. Our traffic officers have done a great job on seeking and applying for traffic safety grants. So that $122,000 of that is reimbursed by these grants to the city. And so you will see that in revenue coming in on different grants. So that's part of that increase. Does that answer your question a little bit?
Well, it does, yeah, except the only thing I was concerned, my big concern when I saw that was, are we going to have situations where people are working 14 or 16-hour days, straight, things like that?
If we drop below that 1.5 per thousand, we will, because we did that, and we had to put people on mandatory shifts of 12 or 14 hours, and it was tough.
Okay, but
One of
okay.
the things is just overtime, it happens in police work.
Yeah.
And it's hard to control and estimate, because when officers, let's say they get off at 6 a.m, they get a call at 5:30, they can't check out at 6. They got to complete that call.
Yeah.
And most likely if they have reports, they have to complete those reports. And there's court overtime, there's training overtime, there's holiday overtime. So that's all included in those overtime costs, included in that.
Okay, but they're comfortable with it, right?
They're comfortable with it, yes, yeah. And yeah, I would love to say an officer would cut overtime, but reality is adding an officer would probably actually increase overtime just because of those additional costs.
Okay.
Yeah. Other expense in capital, we have 2 replacement patrol vehicles. Councilor Davis asked a little bit about our vehicle replacement plan. We've replaced 2 vehicles probably for about the last 14 years yearly. And what we do is, that's just patrol vehicles. Sometimes we add a detective vehicle in there, but patrol vehicles, two every year. We work with our fleet department on which ones are going offline. This year, for instance, the 2 that went off or they're about to go offline because we just received our new ones are about 8 to 9 years old, and they have about 100. One of them has 142,000 miles. The other one has 140,000 miles and a blown engine. So these will replace. Those will come offline, and they get auctioned off. And the other part is that even with 140,000 miles, our vehicles idle a lot, like in traffic stop. Anytime our lights are on, they idle, so it actually adds more wear and tear. Some say up to 5 times more than what the miles show, but it is a lot more wear and tear. And then the last thing I just want to mention is we have our behavioral health clinician that we added a couple years ago, and it's been a great success. The city of Malala has requested, and I think I brought this up to the council at one point, to share our behavioral health clinician. And so we've had talks to them, and for next year, we're gonna share that position 25% of the time, and they will reimburse us through actually a grant through Clackamas County, 30% of his cost. So we're gonna see how that is. Malala is a great partner for us. They're close, and it's really about when you have a call, when someone's having a mental health crisis, for them to be available. So that will be, I think it'll be a good partnership. We'll see how it goes over the next couple of years and evaluate that, but I think it's good. I think that's about it. If you have any questions, our captains are happily here to answer that.
Well, first of all, thanks, George, for the presentation. Yeah. And I really appreciate the partnership that the police department has with the fire department. The medical responses that your people do and your backup to fire is excellent. So
thank you.
Keep up the good work with that. Also, I know that unfortunately emergency management's under the police department. It's a tough position, and we're updating the emergency management plan. But everybody will remember back a few years ago, let's not forget the ice storms, the wind storms, the firestorms, and everything else. And I know council was talking about what do we do after we rewrite the emergency management plan, and how do we exercise that emergency management plan? Because I can tell you today, we are not ready for a disaster in the city. We are not ready. And that is, that's a huge issue for the community of Canby. So, I'd like to put in the parking lot anyway, a position for once we complete this emergency management plan, that we look at a 1 or 2 year employee to just exercise the emergency management plan and to organize the city for a disaster response.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a need. One of the things that I thought about is that we're working with this consultant, as you said, for the emergency operation plan. And I'm wondering if we could continue a little work with them, since they've worked with us, right? Is what do they recommend for emergency manager? Do they recommend, someone on contract, someone quarter time, half time, full time for our size city and for our need? So I think that might be something.
Right, and I know that the police department and fire department, we do the best we can when a disaster hits. We just work together, we try to make it work. But with that said, police are out in the street and fire's out in the street.
Correct.
So who's gonna run the EOC?
Yeah.
You know, and so there's a lot of training of staff and everything else that has to happen to go along with that.
Yeah, right.
Yes, Mayor Hudson?
Counselor Patton.
Counselor Patton, sorry. You have a question?
Yes, so, thank you, Chief Tro, and, I always preface this by saying that I have always been a supporter of our police department, and I think you folks do a great job at keeping, citizens safe and keeping the city's insurance rates down. And you've mentioned before that you would like to, make sure that there's, 3 people per shift or whatever you were saying. How many more people would that add to the current staff of the department?
Yeah, from our current staff right now at 29, to really have that 3 person minimum, we would have to add minimum 3 officers.
Okay, so I guess I'm going to plant a seed here, and I've mentioned this before, so I'll just mention it again. Currently, the police take up 40% or so of the entire city's budget, and then all the other departments fit within the remainder of that amount. I think the city and, your department and stuff might, if that is the goal, we're going to have to come up with some creative way on how we increase that coverage while not making it so that officers have to go out and fill potholes in roads or sit behind a desk at City Hall and take payments for bills. So as part of the plan to try and staff the department up that much, I think we really need to start digging into how we do that, because based on the many years that I've been on the budget committee, we do not see the type of increases in our taxes to buffer that. So that is the seed that I am planting for future discussions regarding this.
Sounds good.
Yes, Counselor Hensley.
Thank you. If you said this and I missed it, I apologize. But under the revenue, I know that the SRO reimbursement and the BHU reimbursement, I understand what those are. You got a homelessness initiative grant, which is a new revenue, it appears, and a vehicle release and tow fees, which is new over the next couple of years. So I'd like just a quick explanation of what that is and where it's coming from. And then also you have miscellaneous fees and temporary liquor licenses that dropped considerably. So I'd like to know.
So,
What
yeah,
that
I'll address
prediction is.
the homelessness initiative grant, and Eileen could talk a little bit about, but that was a grant that we applied for through the county. And Brandon headed it up, our behavioral health specialist, to address some issues with homelessness. And I forget what's all listed on the grant, but.
So it's a one-time
It's a
income
one-time,
amount. Okay.
one-time thing. So that'll be coming in. So that is brand new. Temporary liquor license, I'm not sure why it is actually 700. It probably is a little bit higher. That one's very hard to predict, but it looks like, yeah, it is a little low from the 5,000 to the 700. So
Yeah, and
not sure. So
17,000
my guess is
to
that
200.
that will be a little bit higher. And reports revenue, fee went up a little, we're getting that a little bit more just because we're having more requests, especially with video, and those cost a little bit more to
The miscellaneous went from 17,000 to 200, when historically it had been 15, 16. So I'm wondering what kind of fees those were and where they went. Miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous revenue, that is, where has been, that has been in the past, well, I don't know why, because it should list the background of that, other years. I'm not sure.
Okay.
It's miscellaneous revenue that comes in for.
I stumped the chief. Can we have an answer next week?
I don't know. I could have an answer next week.
Okay,
yes.
perfect.
I'll
And-
work with Scott on that and see.
Okay.
Because there should be a history, and I don't know why we don't have a history on that one. For past years. Anyway.
Okay, and then finally, you did mention that when a car comes offline and it's auctioned off, where in the revenue do those funds
I
pop
think
in?
that comes in the general revenue fund. I don't know if it's a fleet side of things or
Okay.
just general revenue for the
All
city,
right.
but it doesn't come back to us.
Perfect, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Mayor Hudson, did you have a question?
Nope, I'm good.
Counselor Stern?
My question, sort of follow up to,
Opioid settlement. There we go. Some of that miscellaneous revenue is opioid settlement funds that we received from the state on the lawsuit. So that's where that's coming from.
okay. So my question, and maybe it's something to put on the, in parking lot. My question is, to get the full coverage, we wanted three officers at a time, minimum, you said 3 more officers would be needed. What would be the cost of that, or could be the cost of that as a dollar amount? I think we should,
My guess roughly is, it's probably around, $175,000 for salary and wages and benefits. And then plus there's the cost of, of equipment and stuff, $200,000 each. So $600,000 maybe a year.
So, yeah, $200,000, it may be the marginal cost of each.
I think that's,
officer?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to, I just think it's a good discussion to have of if something else is needed, is there room for something else on that? I'm not saying I would vote for it because I know budgets have to be balanced. So you give one, you take from another, but I just maybe want to put that into a discussion later with maybe the $200,000 number, or if you want to refine that a little bit.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, sir, I just want to first say thank you for your service to our community.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
I appreciate you, and so does my family.
Thanks.
So. A couple of questions I have. So I'm a little confused with the FTE line item here, so maybe that could be explained to me. So FY23 actuals was 27. Is that right? On page 64.
64. That's of just sworn officers.
Sworn officers.
So this is just sworn officers,
Yeah.
and the FTE down in the other is our total staff, including non-sworn staff.
The 29.3?
Yes.
Okay. And then, so projected for next year, sworn officers is 28. And then.
So 24 is actually this year that we're in.
Oh, okay.
And then the 25 is where we're
25,
at.
okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
projected 29.
And so, now here we have, for FY24 budget, we have 34. Is that right?
Correct, right now.
Okay,
Yes.
and it's gonna go to 34.9. Okay.
Yes, that's the additional SRO, and then that also includes that 0.75 of the code enforcement. And then I think, is it 0.1 for the bailiff? Or bailiff? It's like 0.1, so that's why it's, I think, point.
And then you mentioned if you increase 1 FTE, it will also increase overtime?
Yeah, it does increase over time.
It does? Okay.
It's not like a lot, but it does increase over time because there's costs associated with that. Like I said, holdovers, reports, training, holidays if they work.
Okay, so it doesn't like relieve?
It doesn't. I wish I could say, it may relieve some filling of shifts at times, but overall, it really doesn't relieve overtime.
Okay. Yeah, because I was just looking at FY23, FY24, it's a 41% increase in overtime wages with 1 officer added, sworn officer. And I know, I think you kind of touched on those overtimes. They just significantly continue to jump, even though we are now at full staffing.
Yeah, it has jumped a lot, but some of that is the grant money because we're more aggressive in grant money, correct?
Yeah.
And then also, so we actually budgeted this year the same amount of overtime as last year, but this year we're not spending it because we're really close to full staff. So it's like I said, it's kind of hard to estimate sometimes overtime.
Yeah.
And so we're actually, I think.
So that grant money that you're anticipating getting, and we're anticipating on using it,
Yes.
right? Is that grant money like a continual thing?
So we apply every year for different grants, and it depends what's out there. So our traffic team looks at those, and so some of them are like DUI enforcement. We have actually a pretty large grant right now for the construction on 99E that we received from the state. Some of the seatbelt enforcement, some of the cell phone distracted driving enforcement. So there's various grants, and they apply for it and go from there.
So it's okay to budget like grants like that, like,
Yeah, if we think we're gonna get them, like they're usually in the fall is when they come out.
Yeah.
But we've had really good luck, especially with the success we've had with our grants.
okay, good.
Yeah.
I like that, that's great. Another question here is the last line item, accreditation.
Yeah, so we are a state accredited agency, and there's a yearly cost for that. So we have to have the right policy. They come in every 3 years and do a complete audit, and we did one, our last one was about a year and a half ago. And so that's just the fees for that.
Perfect.
Yep.
Yeah, I saw the budgeted number, exactly what happened. I was like, that's
Yeah.
pretty good. Okay, that's it, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Mayor Hudson.
So since Counselor / Chief Davis left, and then since he brought up the emergency management person, is it safe to say then that Canby Fire would be willing to pay for half of that position? Can we get them?
That would be great.
Can we get them to commit to that?
That would be great,
Bernard,
because
since
a
he left?
large portion of their population is in the city.
Perfect.
Correct.
Great. I just wanted to bring that up as a bargaining chip. Yeah, right, I know, he left. That's, yeah, see,
Perfect time to ask.
I was gonna ask it earlier, but I was like,
Like you're thinking.
how you got him mad at me last night? I don't even mad at me tonight.
All right, any other questions? Okay.
Point of clarification. So, I know you were questioning the temporary liquor license and the $700. For one reason or another throughout this process, there's empty lines that I hide because there's nothing there. And what it looks like is the lines actual for 22, 23 and the 24 budget, as of the vehicle release tow fees, were shifted down. So those will have to be shifted back up in order for the lines to actually correspond and look relatively, in order for an analysis to be on a year-by-year basis. So those will have to be shifted up, so.
Under the 96,000, if you shift that 15.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, I was sitting there going, what's going on?
Okay.
So those will be shifted up.
So you're saying that really the miscellaneous fees line should be the $15,000?
The miscellaneous fees should not be $15,000. It should be the 884, 558, and the 200.
Oh, okay.
Those should be shifted up
Oh, okay.
across those 3 columns. So those should be all shifted up. So somewhere along the lines, when I probably hit a row or added a row, it didn't do what I wanted it to do. I called Todd after that.
Oh.
Okay,
He didn't fix it.
So that'll get fixed.
So that'll get fixed in in the next one, because obviously we've got more things to, and so, yeah, we're having a checklist running, so.
The rest of these.
In total, though, the proposed total is accurate.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm getting rummy, so.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, any other questions?
Next program is Parks. Jerry?
Parks and. I don't know, what time are we done?
I thought we were done at 8:30. We were done last night. We're losing people.
See you later.
Good evening, councilors and commissioners. My name is Jerry Nelzine. I'm the Public Works Director. And we're going to be on page 67 and 68, the budget. And so bear with me. This is my first parks budget. Jeff Snyder has always done that. I was wishing he would have stayed a little longer and done this one this year.
He retired in time.
He retired in time, yeah. So, so pretty big shoes to fill here. So anyways, I'll try to make this fast because I got some stuff to go over, some changes that I need to be, some mistakes I made. So just to give you a brief background on our Parks Department, They basically, we have a maintenance department that provides safe, clean, well-maintained recreation facilities that serve our community. They take care of 34 sites and about 215 acres in the city. Some of the highlights we did this year for capital projects is we did an urban renewal funded project and upgraded community park with a couple of ADA bathrooms and provided sewer to community park with increased parking, I think around 34 spots. We also installed almost complete a fitness campaign exercise court over at Legacy. It should be done in this budget cycle, we're hoping, so to make it easy on our finance director. We also installed on the last, in the last budget cycle, or this budget cycle, we completed a shelter at the Locust Street Park. We maintain 8 restroom buildings. We clean them 5 times a week, 10 playgrounds and a skate park, and maintain basically 20 park areas. 15 of them are city-owned, and 15 city-owned properties. So goals that we're trying to do this year is turf and light Maple Street Park. We've started design on Auburn Farms Park development over there. If no one knows where that is, it's on Locust Street Park. It's a park that should have gone in years ago with a development that went on over there. And I'm going to try for a tennis court. Lee, I know you're looking at us here. We're going to try.
That would be great.
Yeah, so. Anyways, the other thing is we're going to try to finish and adopt the master plan SDC methodology if we have time this year. So just to go over it, there's one more thing that I wanted to throw in there. If you go to page, we're going to kind of go back and forth to page 35, and it's the CIP. And this CIP has got everything in it, but I want you to just, look on page 34 under parks. And this CIP, I don't know what happened, but took it to the Parks Advisory Committee. Many times they looked at it, reviewed it, and so we had a couple things that we need to make changes on. And so one is we want to initiate the Wade Park Master Plan process and improvements. And it's for $300,000. It should have been slid over one slot into the 25 budget. We're going to do that, try to do that this year. And then below that is the South Canby Off-Leash Dog Park. And I got ambitious on this, and this is for our mayor. I want to include this in the project when we build the Walnut Street connection. And so I was hoping to get it done in this budget cycle, but I think it'll be started more a little bit in it'll be in the 26 budget cycle towards the end of the Walnut Street project. So those are the only 2 things I wanted to change on the CIP. And so, Scott, is that okay just to do that through this process, let you know, or do you want me to, how do you want to do this? And how do we want to approach that?
Walnut Street.
Okay.
Before we get to the next draft.
Okay. Great. So then if you go into our actual budget, we are right at 6.2 employees for the parks. And I know Jack had a question, and if I forget any of your questions, I forgot to print that out and bring it. I know you had one for our deferred maintenance.
Deferred maintenance, are we catching up on the stuff?
No.
No, we're not.
We're maintaining. Sorry, Brian, that wasn't at you. But no, we're just maintaining. You can see what level we're at. That's what our parks look at. That's what we can maintain. When we build Auburn Farms, that's going to add, I think, about 900 man hours that we don't have. We're currently, you can see the FTEs have kind of jumped around and changed and stuff, and we're doing some restructuring to save on that. And we're going to start using a lot more, try to use more seasonal help to save money and to just have them during the seasons. So going down, did you have any more questions?
What kind of deferred maintenance are we looking at?
You know, Jack, I'd have to get back to you on that. Jeff was so good on, my background is you work 8 hours a day, and what you get done, that's what you get done. They had that down to the calculation and all that, and I'm not real up to speed on that, to just be honest. It would take me a little bit to dig up all of his information on the deferred maintenance.
Because it's not that big a deal. I just don't like to see things that, you've got something that's decaying, and the longer you let it go, the more it costs to fix.
And that's where, just not to go away from answering that to you, but we want to get more into an asset management program and get in that so that we can actually give you real calculated stuff on that. And that's the goal, to try to get it figured out, what we do, how it can be more efficient, how we can, calculate that and then bring it to you because I don't have 28 years in the Parks Department like Jeff, so I'm just kind of starting over here. So,
Okay. Question along those lines. We're gonna be spending $900,000 for a dog park.
No, that's one of the changes I wanted to get to down under capital. The dog park somehow got put in there twice. It's $450,000, and it's gonna be in the 26 budget, not this budget.
So, and then we're going to develop a new park called Auburn Farms Park.
That's the one that I was talking about over on Locust Street. It's across from Auburn Farms. It's like a 2.8 acre parcel that we had dedicated when they built Auburn Farms.
$1.5 million.
Yeah.
So why are we adding parks that we can't maintain the existing ones and we got deferred maintenance? How does that work?
We just, we just keep falling further and further behind on the deferred maintenance.
Well, can we defer some of these dog park for dogs?
Yeah,
almost $1 million?
We have a really active Parks Advisory Committee, and all of this stuff is discussed there. They work the CIP. They're the ones that bring the recommendations forward to council, and council approves the projects. And so that's why we need to get, if we're gonna continue to build parks, we're gonna have to eventually figure out how to get more funding. And so.
Don't you think that time has come now?
Yeah, it has, and they're trying, what their goal is to get maybe more into a recreation district to expand the parks area, to bring more income in, to start helping with that.
It kind of reminds me when my kids were, becoming teenagers. And all of a sudden, I want this and I want that, and I gotta have this, and so on. I'm saying, well, wait a minute. There's a difference between a want and a need.
Yeah, Jeff Snyder.
Is this a need to have more parks, or is it a want?
It's a want, and to answer that, everyone wants more parks that lives in the community, and they want one next to their deal. And, our maintenance people would love hearing this if they're listening right now, you saying this, because we agree with you 100%. But it's, as the city grows, the demand for parks come up. We just updated a new master plan. And in the master plan, what it said with what our current standards are, we need 3 more FTEs. So.
And the police department was just here, and they need 3 more.
Yeah.
And which is more important, a dog park?
Well,
or put more police
they carry
officers?
guns. So I gotta be careful, but yeah, this is the challenge we have every year with this, and I can't see him. But yeah, this is a challenge that we need to start working on and address, because we are gonna fall
I think it's
over.
time to put our priorities for our community here, and one of the first things I think of is protection and safety.
Yep.
Police, the fire department, and here we are buying land to build more parks for which we can't take care of the ones we have. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. That's
Sorry.
Good point, for sure, yeah. Was that, yeah.
That's it.
I got it.
And
I said my piece.
Counselor Patton, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak on that point. There's a certain amount of expectation of citizens to have certain types of facilities. And I know the dog park has been a lightning rod of a project, but I would point out that that particular project has been in the works for over 10 years. And I personally would like, as a city councilor, we sent that back to the Parks Board to review, because the community came forward and expressed some concerns as to what the cost was and where it was going to be located. And the council, answering that, sent that project back to the Parks Board to come back to us with their recommendation. And that is what their recommendation is to scale the project back and put it in a different area. So, I think, at least for my part, I think it's important that we move forward on that. I know that there is going to be a discussion about how we're gonna fund all this stuff in the very near future. There is a current Canby Area Parks and Recreation District that is technically a form of a taxing district that has been larger than what it really needed to be. And it sounds like the lines for that district have been moved. And so this will maybe provide an opportunity for the city to actually form that Parks and Recreation District and start to fund some of these projects less out of the general fund and more out of what a traditional park and rec district would be. And I'm really excited about that. I think that's going to help fix some of this deferred maintenance aspect of things, the shortfalls and that sort of stuff. So I think that is something, as members of the budget committee, you might wanna watch as that develops, because I think that will have an impact on how we look at these numbers when we move forward into the 2025, 2026, and probably even the 2027 budgets.
Well, I don't know who owned that property down off Territorial and Redwood down there. There's about 60 acres down there that the people take their dogs and run all over the place down there. Doesn't cost the city anything, I don't think. They just drive down there and turn their dogs loose and have a great time. And yet we're gonna spend, what, $500,000 for a dog park? I mean, and the police department needs more people.
Well, sir, just to let you know, the dog park is not going to be in this year's budget, so it won't be billed in this budget cycle, but we can have another conversation when we get ready to come to budget next. Is that okay?
Sure, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I just saw it in the budget, thought there was.
No, appreciate your input on it.
Any other questions?
Yes, Councilor Stearns.
Sorry to make everybody's life miserable, but the question I have is the same with the one for the police department, is approximately how much per additional maintenance person? And you don't have to, maybe you can give that to next week if you want to figure it out. And if we could put that on the bubble, not that I'm a favorite or opposed to it, but it seems like it's an issue, because I agree, I don't think it's very wise to defer maintenance. I mean, we may say the grass goes 3 inches instead of 2 inches, that's one thing, but but deferring maintenance to have equipment degrade is just causing more expense in the future than necessary. So I mean, like I said, I think at the end of this budget, if we have a few things where we talk about that, and I know we're not gonna be able to do all of them, we're gonna have to do any of them, but I think it needs to be discussed that, hey, police department, maybe need 600 more, parks, maybe 600, where's the money? Oh, we can't find it, okay, so we live with what we have, or maybe we can find the money somewhere. But my suggestion is put that on in the parking lot.
And what were we going to put on the parking lot?
Well,
Just the idea of park maintenance or?
well, no, I guess
specific proposal?
he mentioned 3 more people would be something that he would like.
No, that's what our Parks Master Plan recommended,
Well,
to maintain.
Yeah, for the master plan or the whatever suggests is 3 more people.
Yep.
So I would like to suggest that 3 more people, however much that costs, be put on
We can cost it out.
the parking, or whatever, the bubble, the parking lot, whatever you want
Yes.
to call it, for discussion after the presentations are all done.
Got it captured. Capturing.
Yes.
Sorry, I know,
Mayor Mutz?
make life difficult for everybody, but that's what we're here for.
I do have a question.
Oh, yes.
So, ma'am, earlier you talked about some sort of study that the city was gonna pay for. I think it was early on in the,
Community survey. We were going to do a community survey.
yeah, is any of this in that survey, or will be?
Well, the survey hasn't been designed yet, so it certainly could be.
Okay.
Any of these ideas could be added to that survey, certainly. Yeah, it's how well are we doing? What services should we be providing?
Do we need
Where are we
that part?
missing? do we need a dog park, all of that kind of stuff are all good candidates for that community survey. Yeah, I mean, it would be nice to know from people, you know, if you want this service, are you willing to pay for it?
Yeah, Roger.
I mean, are just we can keep asking that question until we get the answer we like? Because people have said, yes, we do, then they don't, then they do, then they don't. And I'm like, how, like, you just make a decision?
I can answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, Jason was spot on when we were talking about it, and the council came back to the Parks Advisory Committee, and I was directed to hire a consultant to go look for properties for a dog park.
Right.
The Parks Advisory Committee said, we got city staff that's worked here forever, let them bring us some properties. So Jeff Snyder and I went out and started looking at properties, and we found some property, we brought it back, and they loved it. And it is on the priorities of the Parks Advisory Committee to build a dog park. They just want to do it with my Walnut Street connection because it'll save so much money.
Right.
And so I was hoping to get that project out this year so we could build it this year, but I'm just not quite there, so it'll be in the following budget. So did that answer your question?
Yes.
It is a priority, and it's in the capital improvement plan, so it's in motion.
Okay. Yes, Mayor Hudson.
So is the Parks team currently at their full FTE count of 6.2?
Yes. The only thing we're down right now is an operations supervisor that's funded a little bit out of that Jeff's old position.
Okay, that's right. My next question was going to be, what open positions are we trying to fill in the Parks Department?
Yeah, I've just had a conversation with Human Resources today on what we're going, and we're kind of getting a plan on that regroup. And we've interviewed, we got a seasonal started, helping at cemetery and parks, and then we're interviewing more next Thursday. And we've raised the wage on that, and we've had a lot of applicants. So it's before, we were trying to offset the deferred maintenance with seasonal help when we did it, but we couldn't get any because the pay was so low and COVID and the work. And now all of a sudden, we're getting good applicants and good qualified. So I'm hoping that we can get more efficient and get caught up.
Any other questions? Councilor Patton?
Yeah, I'll just throw out, I think I had overheard that there was some questions, and it might have been referring to some of the different parks and stuff, adding those questions to a survey to go out to citizens. I would just let folks know who aren't familiar with it. The city invested a fair amount of money into a parks master plan, and there was a pretty extensive community survey as part of that. And turfing fields, building more fields, parks, dog park, there were several things that rose to the top of that list. So with there being an interest in, and I'm just gonna throw this out for staff, with there being interest in, you know, kind of what the citizens think of that, perhaps at the next budget committee meeting, you could print out that list and it could be given out to those folks just so they can kind of see what those priorities are moving forward. I mean, we spent a lot of money on that thing. I say print out and, you know, show it to the world because we spent good money on that. So we need to leverage it.
How long ago was that?
The master plan?
No, what he's talking about.
Yeah.
The park master plan.
Yeah, that was in the.
Last year.
Yeah, we completed it last year. And when we update, we got what we have left, and you'll see some money in there for the SDC methodology to update that. That's what we got, the last portion of it, and planning's helping us with that. And that means that Brian Potter's hopefully gonna do most of that, but he's good at that stuff. So just to go through materials and services real quick, there's some changes. You guys will, some drastic changes you'll see. The contract services one went up drastic to 43,000, and what it is they did a lot of their own hazard tree removal and stuff, and the truck that they used was a 1983 GMC that they cannot recertify, they cannot fix it, and they actually were trying to machine the parts to fix it, couldn't find it. So it was buy a $350,000 truck for parks, or I told the guys we're just gonna budget some money to just hire contractors to do this hazard tree removal and stuff. So that'll cut back, give them more time to be working on the maintenance that they should be doing. And then there's another one, under there, the master plan stuff, that's the SDC methodology update that I was talking about, it's going in there. And then the other one that jumped up a little bit was the parks ground maintenance and building maintenance. And ground maintenance, if you go down to Community Park, you'll see the white, old, ugly-looking bollards with chains that have fallen over and stuff. We want to replace those with some curb. We want to put curb and finish off tying it with the bathrooms. So that's something we threw in there. And the other thing, parks, building maintenance and stuff, was we've added more money for a little bit of painting and stuff like that, and then utility prices are going through the roof and stuff. So with all of our stuff, we raise that. And then
I'm sorry, that was the park building maintenance?
Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah, and then we'll put in there is the Scott made this parking lot maintenance repair, 50,000, which I love that he put this in here so we can track it. You guys know what it is, and it's if you go over there at Legacy Park where we put the fitness court in the parking lot. I actually paid that my first year here in like 2004, and it's held up great. We did it in-house, it's held up great, but it is like it's gonna fall apart. So that's around 19, 20 years old, so we're gonna jump on and pave that, so that parks and get caught up on some of that deferred maintenance for parking lots, buildings and stuff like that. And then I had a question, and this came from last year's budget. And it was, I think you, Mayor Hodson, brought up the Canby Kids, and we put $80,000 in there, and we never used any. Well, it's in here again. Do you remember that vaguely? I thought it was you. We were talking about giving them some money and letting them, or was that, it had to be you, Mayor, or what? I'm trying to figure out who brought it up, but we threw it in there again just in case. We can pull that out if you don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at my notes from last year to see what that was allocated.
If I may?
Yeah, Jason, do you remember?
Yeah, so what it was is there was some grant money that was put into different pots, and if memory serves me correctly, not all that grant money was used for other things, and so that was mixed with some other funds, and this Canby Kids was created, this Canby Kids line was created. There was originally discussion as to whether it should be given to them as a gift, but then it was decided to be, to make things all fair and copacetic, to make it more of a grant fund, if memory serves me correctly, that they would then be able to apply for and draw from. And I mean, I don't know if that was ever communicated with them. I'm surprised if it was that they did not take advantage of this particular program. But I remember there was quite a bit of back and forth that against just handing them a pot of money, because it would set a bit of a precedent for other groups coming forward and saying, well, you gave them $80,000, so now we want $80,000 as well.
Hey, Jason, Jamie has something to say here.
Good evening. Yeah, good evening, everybody. Jamie Stickle. I'm the Director of Economic Development and Communication Specialist for the city. And the grant money that is being discussed, I believe, was the Community Enhancement Grant. Canby Kids applied, and after some discussion, we actually allowed them to apply for each one of their sports, because that money goes so far in impacting the community. I believe in the past, maybe there was a line item directly for Canby Kids, but that was the avenue that we were able to infuse money into their programming last year. And they received $10,000.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. Jason, or Councilor Patton, thank you, Jamie. So that basically can then come out of, and is that an ongoing piece that we have?
Hopefully, why is it in?
Oh.
The ongoing here.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Sorry, that's segueing into the next person.
Okay.
Why is it in parks as well? Yeah.
And that's kind of the changes that we've made this year. So if you have any more questions.
I have one real quick regarding this $80,000 for the Canby Kids. might be jumping ahead a little bit, but, is there a similar amount of grant funds in those accounts that we did last year that they were able to take advantage of?
This line that I'm talking about, that money never got put in this budget. It was talked about, but I don't think we remember to put it in on this budget. I don't know what Jamie's doing. Jamie's gonna talk about what she has when she comes up here, but, I don't think so, Jason.
Okay, so I guess for my part, I would like to put an asterisk next to this. You know, if those grant funds are, in the other program are still available for them, I really think that if they're able to have access to those grant funds, I think this $80,000 could go a long ways towards some of the deferred maintenance and stuff that we are facing. So, you know, if what is in those programs can still provide them with some of the funding that they need, and this money can be put towards like maintaining the fields and some of the other stuff that will help them more indirectly, that $80,000 just stands out to me.
How about we change it to turf maintenance and we put it into a fund every year to maintain the turf? How about that? That's in there already? Okay, I didn't see that.
You can buy half a copy.
Okay, never mind. All right, thanks, Jason, I guess.
Just half of one.
Yep, are we,
Any other questions?
okay? This,
It's fully baked.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to, this one should be fast.
So am I.
Okay.
Yes. Canby, Zion Memorial Cemetery. I actually do know a lot about this one. I took over it in 2015, got it going, everything else, from the contractor, and now we have, 2 employees out there. We're gonna do a little restructure with just how it is, because I have some retirement stuff going, but everything's staying the same on this, no changes. We were gonna budget for a mower, but we ended up being able to purchase it in this budget cycle because we had the funds. So nothing new at the cemetery. The following year, I was talking to Rhonda Roselle, our office specialist, and she says that next budget cycle, we're gonna have to look into making some more real estate, taking some money to make some more plots. But right now, we're good for this year, so. This is on page 69 and 70, and nothing, no change, no real changes. So.
Are you running out of mausoleums?
We have quite a bit of mausoleum room left.
Good.
It's the land for caskets that we've been selling a lot of. That's kind of all I had.
Any other questions? Nope. All right.
I think that's the fastest the cemetery's ever gone.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you. We're getting down to the end, folks, so hang in there.
2 more to go.
Just gonna do this page. We're gonna do this.
We're doing all this. We got all this stuff. We got this whole back page here tonight, Liz. Come
That's
on.
not happening tonight. We're going through I, and I'm going to bed.
Is that the goal?
Last night was
No,
like late
no,
enough.
all of it. We still have all this to go do.
Yeah, right.
Not tonight, sir.
It's up to the budget chair whether or not we stop after I or not.
Oh, wow.
Well, it's her anniversary. I think she got us to go home.
Answers that question.
Okay.
Okay, we're close. H and I.
H and I, and we're done. Okay.
This is what I get for passing out candy before budget committee, just all the energy, I
Where is
love
that
it.
Did you get back down here? It's all.
Yeah, where is that candy? No, I'll get it.
Again, I'm Jamie Stickle. I'm the Director of Economic Development. Economic Development in Canby, we go by Canby Business, and we promote Canby as an attractive business location. We support local businesses, recruit new businesses, as well as development, investment. We support retailers, coordinate events, manage programs, and promote downtown. So that can look like a lot of different things. So I'm gonna hit some of the highlights. One of the things that we were talking about just previously to this with the Canby Kids conversation, as far as Canby Parks goes, is the Community Enhancement Grant Pilot Program. So last year, we invested $41,000 into local businesses, nonprofits, and community engagement efforts. And it could be anything from a nonprofit association, a local business. We even had some just local residents looking to do projects in the community. We, as Don Hardy mentioned previously, the Planning Department and Economic Development Department work very well together, and we work on a lot of efforts together, and one of those is Cultivating Canby, which is a comprehensive plan update, transportation system plan update, and the way that economic development really shows up for that is in the community engagement aspect, and then obviously, you know, when we're talking about urban growth boundary expansion in the future, or potential urban growth boundary expansion in the future, that impacts the amount of businesses that we will be bringing in. We have created and installed new banners throughout downtown Canby and then partnered with several other departments to create the Grant Street Arch and Waite Park banner systems. So Waite Park has had a banner system for a long time, but no real way to make sure that we are transitioning banners in and out, and those kinds of things actually really impact the way that a downtown looks and feels. When you show up and you see a banner of a local event, you know people care, things are happening, and you feel that vibrancy, and you know, strong events, strong downtowns, they really signal strong communities. We also applied for and we were awarded the Certified Local Government Grant. So the City of Canby is a certified local government, which is something that we've achieved at the state level. By being a certified local government, we are able to tap into a grant that comes every 2 years for historic preservation efforts. And so we've talked, you might hear us at City Council talking about reconnaissance level surveys or intensive level surveys. And those are things that might not seem like they really are economic development, but we've taken previous survey work done and we created walking tours. So people can get a brochure, walk around, you'll see plaques, and it really encourages that pedestrian activity in downtown. We also implemented Shop Local Canby, which is a way between Small Business Saturday and right after the first of the year to encourage people to shop at local businesses. It's very easy to shop on Amazon. We don't really want people to shop on Amazon. We want them to shop at our local businesses. Typically speaking, that money stays in the community longer. This year with the engagement, we actually increased the amount of businesses that participated, the amount of prizes that were awarded, and then also the marketing that went around being able to promote the business engagement and promote those businesses as being good partners with the program, with Canby Business, and with the community overall. We extended that well into the spring with one-on-one videos between our economic development and tourism coordinator and local businesses, and then that effort kind of came with a new one where we decided we were going to do a Feature Friday. And so now we have a Feature Friday program on our social media where it's, you know, Tyler Nizer, who's our economic development and tourism coordinator, one-on-one interviewing a business owner or business representative. And we're very proud because we just had a local business and they speak traditionally Spanish in their business. And we were able to work with them, you know, so that they could promote their business in their language. They had someone who helped to translate and helped to engage in English. So we had English and Spanish. It was our first time ever. Something we're really proud of being able to engage with all of Canby's businesses. We've also increased our small business in downtown Canby marketing, and some of that is through opportunities with the Oregonians Here is Oregon program. Canby Advantage, which is the Canby magazine, we do ongoing inserts with them. Mount Hood Territories, which is the Clackamas County's tourism department, they have opportunities as well for cooperative marketing. And then potential hotel development, I'm gonna talk a little bit more about that as far as goals go. And then also our ongoing events. So we are in charge of the first Thursday night market, which if you've never heard of it, it's the first Thursday of every month right downtown. There's vendors, local businesses, it's a lot of fun. The Canby Independence Day celebration, Canby's Big Night Out, which happens in August, the downtown Halloween, Light Up the Night, which happens in December, and then, as I said, first Thursday. And so looking forward into 24, 25, one of our goals to help support our business community, our event community, and frankly also the Clackamas County Fairgrounds and Event Center that brings so many people through, is working to recruit a hotel, and we are actively working to recruit a hotel in Canby. Again, fostering a supportive, business-friendly environment. And so, as we've heard from, Don mentioning that we work together and partner on things, or working with Jerry on parks. Without partnerships, economic development, we're not able to accomplish the things that we do. We're a department of two. And so really fostering that, really engaging with, the Chamber of Commerce is a great asset and a great partner in this community. Kiwanis Historical Society, as well as internal partners. And so then moving into the budget on page 72, one thing that I wanted to note, while I understand that our city council's heard this several times, I just wanted to note because of the change for our newer budget committee members. But in 2024, we had received a revenue as far as the grant was concerned, which is from the state. It's the Oregon Main Street Revitalization Grant. And that grant was awarded to the city in 2019 for the redevelopment of the former library building. And even though the city sold that, the grant still stayed with the building. So that's why there's quite a difference between last year and what is proposed for this year. But that grant came in and then went back out. So we will not be expecting something like that again. And then just a couple of the highlights to kind of talk about also, I know that when Don Hardy, our planning director, was up here and then also Chief Tro, there was conversation about the code enforcement or code compliance officer and what does that look like. And I think it was Councilor Stearns that asked downtown parking. Well, one of the things that we're doing this year is the downtown parking update. So kind of a study to see where we're at, what we need to do, and bringing in someone who is an expert in the field. The last time that we studied downtown parking with a consultant who was able to, really take a look at what is happening, not just what our perception that is happening, but what is happening, what are best practices, what does the future look like. So we're going to be working on something like that in this next fiscal year. I mentioned the community small grants, so that's that community enhancement grant program. At the last year's budget, we had $50,000 for community enhancement grants, and that included businesses, nonprofits, et cetera. And then that was actually broken into two. So now there was a community enhancement grant and a business enhancement grant. And those are both live now, and we're doing our best to get the word out. So this is a great opportunity for anyone and everybody who wants more information on the community enhancement grant. They can call myself. Business enhancement grant, they can call Tyler Nizer. But that's something that we're hoping that we can bring back again, continue to build momentum, continue to invest in the community in ways that we haven't been able to do so in the past. And people are really creative. And the thing that I think is the most exciting is that people are really creative with what they ask. They're also so grateful for what we give. And so last year we invested about $41,000, and the hope is that we expend all $50,000 this year for the community enhancement, the business enhancement, and then again that our request to continue that programming is continued. Are there any questions?
You mentioned that there was a business grant for the old library.
Yes.
That you had there, and so that comes in from an outside source and goes strictly to that development. Yes. What's taking that development so long to get off the?
Well, they went through several iterations in their planning effort. But it is under construction right now. They hope to be completed by the end of July. And this morning was in a pre-construction meeting where they were making sure that everything was in line with what the city and our other agencies like Canby Fire, Canby Utility, that we're all in line with what the expectation is so that they can meet that expectation and open for business.
So in other words, the length of time it's taken to get that thing off the ground was because trying to get the grant?
No, the grant was before that. They, one of the things that happened is that their original idea came to the city. They actually submitted their proposal before COVID hit, and we reviewed the proposals after COVID. So, later in that summer. And so then, as we've seen just even in the grocery store, costs have increased significantly. And so they had to go back to the drawing board. And so that, that all takes quite a bit of time. And then they came back to the city with, another idea. And then we worked on, what our expectation is versus what the idea was. And so then they came back again. And so, and then through that process, actually the city's planning department was exploring adding something to the code that would allow for food cart pods. And the owner of the owner of what will now be the Canby Beer Library, they're also the owners of Oregon City Brewing Company, and they have food carts at their current location. And he decided that if the city was exploring and potentially going to allow for food carts and food cart pods, which we didn't allow for before, that would be something that they were interested in because they had had such success at their Oregon City location. So then there was some wait time to then have that ordinance go through and then back to the drawing board. So it went through. So it's been a labor of love, and I feel very grateful to be able to bear witness to the demolition and construction that's underway, because that means to me, and I think to the community, hopefully, that soon we will be enjoying food and beverages at the old library building, which will be extra fun. It seems like the kind of thing that we're not supposed to do. So I look forward to them opening, and it should be by the end of July.
Councilor Hensel.
Yes, I have a question regarding the revenue sources for economic development personnel, actually economic development in general. The allocation from, the transfer from UR, urban renewal, last year was $425,000, this year's also $425,000, and I recollect many conversations of trying to slowly transfer that from the general fund, so we didn't have to do that all at one fell swoop, and I'm not seeing any steps towards that direction, so I'm wondering if you or Eileen can explain why we're at a standstill and we aren't moving in that direction.
I don't have a good answer for that. I think one of the things that happened during our conversations as far as preparing for the budget included, when the urban renewal district sunsets, that then the money that had been deferred to urban renewal would be coming into the city, but I will.
No, that's exactly it. Otherwise we're transferring the personnel costs without the revenue. As I thought about it more, I thought it made more sense to transfer the personnel over when the revenue comes over. So making that transition all at once instead of phasing it. So that's what I'm proposing.
Okay, that wasn't conveyed prior to this, that's why I was a little surprised to
no.
see that, because all of our conversations prior to tonight were we were going to make a gradual adjustment transition.
Yeah, and I figured it would come up either tonight or when we were talking about the urban renewal agency budget next week.
Okay, it'll probably come up again then,
It will probably
because
come up again.
Councilor Davis isn't here, so I'm sure he'll ask next time. Okay, thank
I know
you.
it's on his list.
It also follows an accounting concept of matching revenues and expenditures.
Councilor Patton, did you have a question?
Yeah, so it's regarding the grants, and I guess I should just let folks know, I want to make sure to be upfront and honest with this. So I have been been maintaining the monument sign down by Fred Meyer for the last couple of years. And have been paying out of pocket for the cost of maintaining that. Last year, I planted flowers at the sign, and I actually did apply for one of these grants to cover the cost of the flowers. And I plan to do it again this year. But going back to the Canby Kids, does Canby Kids have the ability to apply for these grants again this year like they had last year?
Certainly. The only request that we had from people, if they are applying again, is that they completed the grant report that we sent out. And so, you know, if we had, let's just say we had, for very simple terms, you know, 10 nonprofits apply, and then we reopened the grant and those same 10 nonprofits applied, and no more, no less, then it would be easy as long as they have submitted the grant report and that the new grant also complies with what the request is.
Okay. So my follow-up question on that is, based on what, because I believe the application process has been open and it closes at the end of the month, correct?
Correct.
Based on how those grants are tracking, is there still, does it look like what's been budgeted, the $50,000 for this year's grant program, going to cover what is it going to cover what people are looking for, or is it going to be short?
We haven't received enough, specifically with items like this, we receive a lot of the applications at the very end. So thus far, I have received one and then assisted with one that they're still getting some more of the additional information. However, what I did for this year was I took a look at the $50,000 that was budgeted. I took a look at the list of the grant awardees that we had from last year, removed any of the business owners out of there, and actually kind of played with the money to say, before it was $2,000 was the cap. Could we offer maybe a little bit more? Because I know that some people only need $1,000 to buy, for example, plants or something like that. But somebody else might need $3,500, and that extra money can really make an impact. So I think that because we're still so new, as far as overseeing this grant effort, I think that the $50,000 is a good marker, and I appreciated kind of the flexibility, and after talking with Eileen, to be able to say what worked from last time. So a lot of if you looked at the grant, application for this current grant cycle, you would say, oh, this looks exactly the same, except it's not quite the same. We've made some small tweaks, but one of those tweaks is increasing the max that nonprofits and others can apply for, because the businesses were taken out of it.
Okay, and the reason I was asking was because, we've got there's the $80,000 that was in the Canby Kids line up above. If you were thinking that this was gonna track, I was kind of planting a seed for myself to say, if this looks like it might be short, maybe moving some of that money from up above into this line to provide a little bit more of a buffer, while still keeping some of that money in the Parks Department to be used for other things. So, okay.
I mean, if you would like to allot more money to that grant program, we would certainly find a way to try and spend it next year happily. I'm sure the community would love it. And so if that's the will of the budget committee and then of the council, I haven't seen $1 I didn't want to spend on something.
Any other questions?
Great. Thank you all for your time.
Thanks, Jamie.
Our last general fund program is the non-allocated, and Scott is going to handle that one, correct?
If he wasn't planning on it, he is now.
He's doing it now.
So
So the last fund is the non-allocated fund, which is basically the potpourri of funds. It basically accounts for all of the revenue, and it should say expenditures because expense only is associated with an actual enterprise fund. So it should say expenditure. That's the proper nomenclature. But it basically cannot be tied to any individual department. So it's kind of like I said, the potpourri, so all of our property tax revenues, all our franchise fees, all of our state sin taxes, anything from American Rescue Plan Act, the ARPA funds, all of those just wind up getting dropped into their sale of capital assets if we have any. That's pretty much the revenue source or your. Then we have all the transfers in and the other sources, which are basically the overhead costs. And again, that's basically all the other funds that are basically helping support Eileen's position, finance for doing the book work. Those are all of those internal charges to the other funds. And then just below that are the small amounts of requirements. We have our retirement and separation payouts, which are basically just kind of that parking lot to make sure that those that retire or separate and they have a piggy bank that needs to be paid out at year end, their compensated absence. We're tracking that. So they get paid out of there. And then we have our materials and services. As you can see, we have the adult center lease. The ARPA expenses are basically a line item that I added because it's an easier tracking mechanism. So I pulled out those types of things and called it, that used to be called COVID-19 expenses. COVID-19, let's get over it. I called it ARPA because that's what we have to spend. We don't have COVID-19. So those are now the ARPA. So that's an easier tracking item.
And those expenses are for what?
Yeah. So the 750 is basically two items that were passed, I believe, by the council. One was to the fair, Clackamas County Fair, and the other one was to Canby Adult Center. So those two combined totaled the $750,000 of ARPA funds.
And I think part of that money too is, was awarded to Canby Utility for the change in the fire hydrants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's in this current year. What we're talking about is what we're budgeting for next year.
Oh, next year, okay, sure.
And then we have the transfer to the library fund, and then we also have the special payment for the PEG access. Those are the other transfers and special payments. That's it for the non-allocated. Are there any questions about the non-allocated?
Yes. Counselor Stern.
So sale of capital assets, we've got that at about $500,000, right?
In fiscal year 22?
Well, that's for 22, but is there any assets that we can sell?
He's all about selling assets. Did this last year.
There's a vacant lot on 4th Avenue and full of equipment.
Wait, are you talking about you're not talking about those water towers that were just designated as historic landmarks in the city of Canby, are you?
So to answer your question, no.
I'm just saying that if we need more money, we got an empty lot that's not being used at all for anything on 4th and But the point is that I'm wondering if there are assets the city could sell, create revenue, and maybe it's not a question that I expect you to answer right now. We're just saying that I think it should be more considered because I think that there may be unused assets out there that the city may have.
Counselor, I don't know if you recall, but we did do that study and we looked at properties around the city and there was nothing there. And that property on 4th, that can be utility.
That's Canby Utility, it's not the cities.
Not us.
Isn't Canby Utility
Protect my turf.
fully subsidy of City of Canby?
No, they're their own entity.
They're a part of our financial statements as a component, but they're not a part of the city. include them as part of our financial statements in the very final column.
They got their own board and their own budget.
Okay, any other questions?
So thank you for your rapt attention tonight and your good questions. I think we will leave it there, given that it is quitting time. So next week, we'll pick up right where we left off with all of our other utility and library and transit and all our other funds, special revenue funds. So with that, we will see you next week.
Recess.
We are, yeah.
Do we need to make a motion to
Recess.
recess now?
I move to recess this meeting to,
May 28th.
23rd.
So 1 week.
Thursday, May 23rd.
I'll second.
Third.
Give it to Paulson.
Make one those money writing in, writing in.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, 47 years.
You can celebrate with us. So,
So we adjourned?
all those in favor?
Recess. All in
Recess.
favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed?
Thank you very much.
And opposed? Nobody's.
Get over it.